Hi, Professor Monteleone. It's kind of, again, really echoey and really terrible lighting over here, but I wanted to do a video submission for the writing, well, I guess for the assignment that we had on Italian Renaissance. And this is last week's assignment, which again, so sorry that I'm turning it in late. But actually, I wanted to start off by saying that I had a really amazing time getting to look over all of the paintings and things that were in the PowerPoint. I had no idea how much I would love the Italian Renaissance until we went over the statues that were made. I really loved the statue of David that was made by Donatello. I really loved the statue of David that was made by Donatello. I thought that, but what really stood out to me in the presentations that we did was Botticelli. So I had seen these paintings in passing because they're so famous, but I had never actually known who even made them, and I had never actually known the parts of them that made them so interesting, right? And what I loved about this like early Italian Renaissance, which is what we're going over right now, and was like this, I mean, it's not that I don't like the Christian influences, and it's not that I don't like the less realistic artwork that came out of those medieval times, but I just really love all of the dramaticism, the poignant expressions. I really love the way that you're put into the perspective of these like godly kind of, you know, otherworldly figures. I think that's just my favorite part about art, is when I can be put into the space with these other figures. And I think that's what I didn't enjoy medieval art so much so, except for the architecture. I loved the architecture. I talked about Gothic architecture in my last writing, and I really loved Gothic architecture. But Botticelli, when he came up, oh my gosh, one of the paintings that I just absolutely loved was Primavera. Primavera was just so gorgeous. I mean, and I'm actually gonna talk about Primavera a little bit, but I just wanted to get through some of those kind of initial thoughts that I had about the writings. I'm gonna flip my camera over in a little bit because I want to actually be able to demonstrate what I'm talking about on the screen, but that was just kind of what stood out to me. I really love Botticelli, really cool, very interesting art. It's just so beautiful. Primavera was really beautiful to me, and so was the Birth of Venus. Both of those were just, I mean, just gorgeous. I love those, and I'm only going to talk about Primavera in this one though. But yeah, so that was my kind of small tiny intro, and I hope you enjoy the USMA presentation. Okay, so the first painting that I want to talk about today is Primavera, and the question that I chose to answer is discuss the use of contrapposto by the early Italian Renaissance artists in at least two works of art. I wanted to talk about Primavera mainly because of just how gorgeous this painting is. I mean, it captured my attention right off the bat when I was going through the slides and reading through everything. I just love the use of colors in this. I mean, they're rich, they're poignant. I mean, the way that the people are just interlaced with each other, you see these leading lines going everywhere. I love the way that I love the way that the space is used too. I mean, everywhere you look, there's these flourishing, beautiful blooms that are really giving off this impression of like the fruitful kind of sensual goddess that was Aphrodite, or well, Venus in this case, right? Because it's her garden. And you can see, you know, Cupid in the foreground, which is her son. But I mean, this piece was just so magnificent to me. There is dynamicism happening in every single square inch of this painting. But of course, what we're talking about is contrapposto. Something that I found really interesting also were just the different poses that each person was in. I mean, they're complicated. I mean, they have these serene kind of beautiful expressions, and then there's just so much emotion on display right here. But the person who's in the middle right here, right? Because you can kind of see all of it leads to this middle beautiful portrait of Venus. You can see her in this classic contrapposto stance. You see that the weight is being shifted onto one leg and being taken off the other one. I mean, her foot right here is literally arced up off the ground, and most of her weight is placed on this one. While her weight is placed on this one, this other arm is kind of arced to the side, and her hip is jutting out on the left side. I want to say the left, or maybe that's her right. Well, I see it on the left. You can see her arm coming out right here, and this is a pretty natural stance for someone who is just kind of standing, pointing off to the side. Very, very beautiful, almost relaxed, just kind of like a beautiful day in the garden for them, which is primavera, right? It was the garden for them. You can see a lot of these examples too of this like contrapposto posing when you look at the three graces as well. I mean, the way that this grace is posed right here, you can also see that same standing on one foot, kind of shifting the foot off to the side or shifting the weight off to the side. The arms are also kind of elevated. This is not necessarily contrapposto. Actually, this is probably a more unnatural stance of the body where they're kind of interlocking their arms. The bodies themselves are definitely posed in this more natural position. But what I like about the arms that the interlocking effect kind of gives is that it leads you around them, and you're really forced to see, I mean, we have the leading lines again. You're really forced to look at every single inch of their bodies, of the three graces bodies. And it was that idea of having to see all of the natural bodies for what they were. I mean, if you go from here, wherever your eye starts, you end up following the arms, trying to find where it is that they interlock, and you end up going here. You see the point, you see the beauty right here, that idealistic beauty. Then you go back up and you're actually even led into the trees a little bit. So I just think this was really genius of Botticelli. Another example of contrapposto that I see here is she's relaxed, her arms are at her sides. Definitely, it looks like she's swollen a little bit, probably not pregnant, but maybe to give the illusion of like a plumpness, of like fertility, something really, let's see. And the way that she's carrying the belly too, I mean, you can see her arm underneath her belly right here, and you can see this arm right here carrying it up kind of, and her shoulders are also kind of, because the arms are placed in front, you could see how Botticelli really had an idea of how the shoulders are usually placed in a human body. So throughout this whole painting, you can definitely see those ideas of, let's see, of like naturalism when looking at the bodies. You can definitely see that he was definitely, I'm sorry, I'm saying definitely a lot. You can see that he was a master of his craft, and you can see that he was knowledgeable about the way that the human body worked. And I think that really was another aspect of wanting to add a contrapposto to his paintings. Or I'm sorry, and another aspect of the second example of early Renaissance or early Italian Renaissance art demonstrating contrapposto that I wanted to hit on was Lady Magdalene. This statue of Lady Magdalene, it looked, I couldn't not talk about it. I mean, she looks contemplative, she looks emotional. You can really see her being wasted away by the years. I mean, Donatello, when he made this statue, when he carved this statue, you could really see the realism that he was striving for. I mean, just the haunting, dauntless expression, or daunting expression in her face. I almost wish I had a better shot of this. I can probably zoom in. Oh, there we go. I mean, the wrinkles that are on her face, you can see the sunken eyes right here, the way that her cheekbones are high and pronounced because she is, you know, she's supposed to not have had a meal in months because she wandered off to be this sort of spiritually devoted person who didn't need, you know, the material things of the world. The way that like the hair looks matted and ratty and it's literally wood is just crazy to me. You can see it as we go lower, you can see just thinness of the body, and the way that like the neck right here too is enunciated in the throat area. I mean, this required skill. When you think about how this is from a block of wood, that is just so crazy to me. And it really speaks to those early Italian Renaissance artists kind of wanting to capture that, and really Italians in general in the area really wanting to capture that human experience, that, you know, human self, centering humanism and centering this idea of capturing the real world in their piece of art. The main thing that I wanted to talk about, of course, was the contrapposto. The way that Lady Magdalene is positioned. I mean, if we zoom in here at her feet, this is one of my favorite parts about this, her feet, because one of the main things about contrapposto is the weight shifting. So if we look here, she has shifted her weight onto this foot from this foot. You can see this foot is not as strained as this foot, and you can actually see the muscles contract as she's pulling her toes around the rock that she seems to be on. And she seems to be holding onto the rock in the same way that a person would if they were barefoot on a round surface. When you clench your toes, you can see the muscles right here being clenched. And I just think that that's so fantastic. I mean, that's amazing. And then you can clearly see the difference between right here, how the knuckles are turning and wrapping around here, versus the foot being a little more, you know, a little more steady, or a little more firm, or not more firmly, but a little less firmly grabbing, less grasping, I should say, less grasping at the rock right here. Another of my favorite parts of this statue is because this foot has all of the weight shifted onto it, and because it looks like it's gripping the rock right here, you can see that the rest of her weight actually follows, with there being a little bit more emphasis on the hip area right here and on this leg right here. So you can almost see that diagonal line that shifts from higher up here to a little bit lower on here, because she's not putting as much strain on this side of her body. And that's really, I mean, that's the idea of contrapposto, is to make these statues look more human in the way that present themselves, to connect them a little bit more to the average human who is walking past them, to feel more connected to them. And I just think that that's, I mean, it's just really beautiful to me. And then the way that the hair kind of comes down, individually carved strands kind of surround her legs and everything. And God, I mean, even the knees right here, you can see these veins right here, and you can see the veins right here, the way that both of her legs actually are straining to keep her up, but you can see the way that this leg is actually straighter. I mean, when you stand on that piece of rock, right, or when you stand on something and you're shifting your weight towards the thing that you're standing on, your other leg curves a little bit because you're pointing that foot up, or you're kind of taking that foot up. So you can see that bend at the knee right here. And it just creates this really beautiful stance, hauntingly beautiful stance that you see for Lady Magdalene. But anyway, those were my two examples, and I hope you enjoyed my short little video on early Italian Renaissance, Professor Monteleone. And I just wanted to thank you because I thoroughly enjoyed this module. I really loved Botticelli's work, and thanks to this module, I have 2 new favorite pieces of art. So thank you so much. Bye.